Hi, third grade. I thought it might be helpful if I showed you how I would get started for my story quilt sketch. This spring break, I was supposed to go to New York, and so my dream would be that I was still able to go on that vacation. So I looked for some examples. I found pictures of actual buildings in New York, and then I found this really interesting view where it shows the Statue of Liberty, the Brooklyn Bridge, and then some of the tall skyscrapers. And then I also found some pictures where it's just more of a simple drawing like this, because that might actually be easier to look at and decide what shapes some of those buildings might be. And then I found this really interesting resource that shows what buildings, like if you look at the shape of them, what they're called, and then when they were built. And it looks like there was a lot of buildings built in the last 20 years. So for this one, I'm going to concentrate mostly on that idea, and my plan is to draw this and then have myself flying over it, kind of like we saw in the story quilt. I was lucky enough to find this Great Clips pencil that has a black eraser, and even though it's not very big, it still is doing a good enough job to make a mark. Now I also found this mechanical pencil that has a black eraser, but when I tried it, the eraser is so old that it leaves a mark, and then that mark does not wipe off. So make sure if you find a black eraser that you try it first, because this one, that is a bad eraser. Okay, so I'm going to have the Statue of Liberty over here, and this picture goes this way. Your story quilt can go up and down or side to side, and I am going to go side to side. They call that the landscape view. You could also, and then the up and down is the portrait view. I'm going to go ahead and start sketching in some of this with a pencil. So I think you'll be able to see it better than my eraser. So I'm going to have the Statue of Liberty, and she's got this great, kind of almost like a toga. I don't know, it's kind of a combination of a dress and a toga with lots of wrinkles. I could do this, and then I think though when people see this arm going up and the torch, they know that that is the Statue of Liberty. And so here we've got this and that flame. Okay, so there's my statue, and then I noticed that the Brooklyn Bridge kind of zips and zooms in this way, and then my buildings are going to be about this tall so that when I'm flying, I'm going to be up in this area. If you have a pencil sharpener and a pink eraser, super helpful to have those handy when you start your drawing. And if you don't have a black eraser, try to just draw very light, because you might want to erase, and it's a lot easier to erase if you are drawing lightly. So this bridge has kind of a cutout. I think this is the Brooklyn Bridge. There's the Washington Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge are kind of the famous bridges in New York, and if I would have gone on my trip, I probably would have those back in my mind again. Let's see, it looks like this goes here. This is a suspension bridge. So it's got these cords. And I have to figure out what to do with this. So it looks like we can kind of see the underside of the bridge. It gets kind of tricky. I might work on that a little bit more after the video. For now, I'm just going to block out the major shapes. Then I notice, and I would guess that even if I just drew skyscrapers, people would know that that was New York because they see the Statue of Liberty. So for your story, if you're drawing somewhere that people would recognize, like New York or Paris or the Leaning Tower of Pisa, something that has a Space Needle in Seattle, something that has a building or a sculpture that's recognizable, make sure we can at least see that so we know where your person is. It could be that your dream is just to be able to go outside and play soccer with your team again. So maybe you're going to draw people on a soccer field. There's water here, so maybe I'll just have that end. And then this will be water. The Statue of Liberty actually sits out on an island in the water. Okay, So then I can just keep drawing these buildings. I'm going to continue that also after the video because I want to talk about adding my person. So if my person is flying over, maybe I don't want him to go the whole paper. I want him to be, you know, pretty decent size in this picture. But we talked about in that first video, if you watched how to draw people, I could decide, okay, my head is going to be here and my feet is going to be there. So then do you remember where the waist goes? It would be in the middle. So if I give myself these 3 little blocks, then I can decide, okay, the head is going to be about 1/3 of this. And if she's flying, I might see the side. And then remember we said knees are in the middle, and maybe I'll have the knees slightly bent like this. I like to start with a stick. And then maybe my hands, just like in the book, are going to be like that. So I'm kind of flying with my arms up. So then once that's done, then I'm going to use my ovals and block this in so it looks like a person and not a stick figure. And this, and then if you want to just even start with mittens for your hands. Okay, so at this point, then I can decide what am I going to be wearing. And I could just put, maybe I'll just put a t-shirt on. So I would have, if you curve this just slightly, it'll look like it's going around. See, I curved that around the arm. And then your shirt would go wider than whatever the ovals are that you made. Then maybe I'll just do pants here. Okay, and there might be some wrinkles. Okay, so then at this point, I don't need to see all of those ovals that I had, so I've got to erase some of this stuff. That's why it's so important to draw light. And my hope is that this won't take you more than an hour to kind of sketch out an idea, and then next week we'll talk about all the different ways we can color our idea. I've got to bring that line back. So this shirt might go out a little further than the pants. Okay. And then I could draw some shoes on. So I would see the heel of my shoe. Maybe I would just do some simple shoelaces. Sometimes artists just use simple symbols so that you can kind of see and understand that that's what it is. The smaller your drawing gets, sometimes the less details you have to do because it gets very small. So if we just do kind of a something that people will recognize that texture and say, oh, those are shoelaces. We don't have to go into super high detail. Okay, my wrist would be smaller. Gotta kind of smooth out my arms a little bit. It's bigger by the elbow. Okay, and is my hair going to be flying all over, or is it going to be just by the side of my head? I guess that's the next question. I am going to try and draw in my face. We talked about how to draw a face when you were in first grade. So if you remember, this is pretty small, but it's football, baseball, M&M for the eyes. Remember that? My nose looks like just kind of a bump. It's going to be small, but do what you can to have good detail. Use what you know as you're drawing. Okay, and maybe I should put an I Heart New York shirt on. That would be kind of fun. I Heart NY. Okay. And so then I will keep drawing some more buildings and get this ready to color. I hope that gives you a good idea of how to get started. If you are going to do a simple picture outside, just think about what other details. So if you're in the park, maybe there's a tree, maybe there's some shrubs. Go and look at the examples I have of past student work, and it might give you some ideas of what you want to include in your picture. Make sure you take a picture on Seesaw and show me your sketch at the end of the week.